but I can confirm through a very, very, very reliable source with 100% certainty on this that North Dakota State passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach Randy Hedberg, who I named as my number one candidate to be the replacement, his camp reached out to Kirk Ferentz and Iowa because he was interested in the job. He was turned down, and the reason was because Brian Ferentz is going to be the next quarterbacks coach at Iowa. So just swallow that. Just process that for a second, Mark. Process the fact that Iowa turned down a quarterbacks coach who in the last 7 years has produced 2 NFL first-round draft from an FCS level, one of which was a 0-star in Carson Wentz, Easton Stick, who's on a roster, and Trey Lance, who was a first-round. 3 in the last 7 years. I can't do what he would have taken as far as money. I don't think money would have been an issue. My understanding is that Randy probably not making anywhere close to what Iowa was paying Ken O'Keefe, nowhere close to it. And he was the passing game coordinator, a higher position, I guess. But the point is, Iowa turned him down for Brian Ferentz to be the quarterback's coach. So I don't want to hear this narrative that this defeatist attitude that people have, Mark. You hear it all the time. Why would anybody want to come play quarterback for Iowa, Mark? Why would anybody want to do that? Why would any coach want to come here and coach quarterbacks? That is such a defeatist attitude, and it's completely false. Okay. So again, Randy Hedberg reached out to Iowa. They turned him down. So take that and run with it. If you think Brian Ferentz is more qualified to be the quarterback's coach, you have the right to that opinion. Again, I'm not stating my opinion with any view to Brian Ferentz as a person, to Kirk Ferentz as a person. I'm just talking about resume. And you compare Randy Hedberg's resume to Brian Ferentz, the fact that they weren't even willing to interview Randy Hedberg, that's just alarming and all the above.
There's nothing involved in Iowa's talent acquisition or ability to produce NFL draft selections or ability to pay a quarterback's coach, as we just saw, that substantiates the narrative of some people that you just outlined. Maybe the only thing would be that some qualified offensive coaches would not want to coach at Iowa unless they were given confirmation that they would be able to have a large amount of say and power in the play calling and in the process. That's the only deterrent I can think of with this program that may fail to yield top-notch offensive personnel on the coaching staff.
But Mark, that goes right back to that's not a culture. That's not a program problem or a locale problem. That still comes back to coaching and administration. If you're not willing to bring in somebody who's more qualified than you are to operate the passing game, like Randy Hedberg is not just the quarterback's coach at North Dakota State, he's the passing game coordinator. So their head coach recognizes that, hey, I know less about passing and quarterback play than you do. So I'm going to give that to you. I'm going to give you that responsibility. That's called humility. It's recognizing that somebody else knows more about it than you do as the head coach. And I don't think Kirk Ferentz would ever claim that he's a passing game expert. His expertise is the offensive line, and that's great. There isn't a head coach out there that is a position coach. These successful head coaches aren't micromanaging every position on the field. That's why you have position coaches that are more than qualified and more qualified than you are, and that's just normal. No head coach. Nick Saban's not micromanaging each position on the field. So just the fact that somebody as qualified as Randy was interested is unbelievable in itself. Isn't that unbelievable in itself, Mark? I mean, it would make sense because if he's not making anywhere close to what I see Nick, and I can't validate this. I see Nick in the chat says he found that Randy was making $104 a year. I can't validate that. I'm assuming Nick Googled that. I really haven't looked into what Randy was making. I'm sure that's public information. But I guess what I'm saying is it would make sense that he'd want to come here, but you always have that in the back of your mind that, maybe the naysayers are true. Maybe they couldn't land a big name. But Mark, I told you this last week. Is there anybody in the country that would be more qualified to come here? That would be a reasonable get than Randy Hedberg. I brought up Yost from Florida International, who's coached a number of NFL quarterbacks. I mean, Lincoln Riley, I guess you could say, might be more qualified. He's not coming here. He's the head coach at USC. I'm just saying of reasonable gets, he would have been a slam dunk. And there's just a lot of frustration. I can tell from the fan base. I read a lot of comments on social media today. There are a few people who are defending Kirk, but again, he's not above criticism, and this is a move that I just don't get.